Hello YouTube, Jeremy here from the Urban Bunker, and this is going to be a reaction video. I recently was given a different pain medication because the doctor thought that what she gave me wasn't working. I was taking, let me see here, 500 milligrams of naproxen taken once a day. Usually I would take it in the morning, and she changed it from that to gabapentin, 600 milligrams, and that's 3 half tablets 3 times a day. And I looked over the paperwork that came with the bill, and when I saw the side effects, I found that humorous. A lot of the side effects that come with this pill, I already have before taking the pill. Usually people with epilepsy get prescribed, and one of the side effects can be seizures, which happens with epileptic people. So the pill that they take to prevent that has the side effect of getting what they are trying to prevent. And this made me think along the whole process with, this is coming from the Veterans Association, so it is prescribed through the government, and I'm thinking, or at least I have the thought of, the government doesn't really want to protect you. They want to keep you in control. They want to make sure that you don't cause problems. Now, a lot of you probably noticed how I speak. A lot of the times I have trouble making myself clear. When I was, I believe, 3, might have been 2, I don't remember exactly, but I was attacked by a dog. During that time, my father was a maintenance worker for an apartment complex, and I would hang out in his workshop, and the apartment complex gave him this dog for protection. And for the most part, it was a friendly dog. But in my 2 or 3 year old mind, I didn't think that dog would hurt me because he liked playing. Well, I went to put my arms around him because I guess I wanted uh, to hug the dog or tell it a secret or whatever a 2 or 3 year old would do. And apparently, the dog had a history of abuse, so it attacked me, trying to protect itself. And my whole head was basically in the dog's mouth. And he shook me violently. My dad had to drop a stack of training manuals that he had for like plumbing and various things. He dropped it on the dog's head to get him to let me go. And I had the doctors said that the nerve damage was so bad that I wouldn't be able to even smile again. And I had 17 stitches all in my face. I had near my left temple, there was a bone sticking out. So that was a rather large scar. Um, my mother thought that it was ridiculous, and she said, "My God will not let that happen to him." And I suppose at that young age, after going through the stitching and everything, when I finally got home, she checked on me before I went to bed, and she found me at the foot of my bed praying for the injuries to heal without any type of bad consequence. All of that aside, um, I did obviously heal. I can smile, though I do have a uh, slight. I'm not sure how to explain it, but the left side of my mouth doesn't open all the way, so it always looks like I'm mumbling or my speech is a little slurred because I can't form my mouth the way it needs to be formed. Um, I obviously have learned to deal with that, so I speak a little slower so people can understand me. The problem is, though, that with the medication that I'm on now as an adult, it does have a slurring of the speech side effect. Now, having a slurred speech because of the nerve damage that I withheld, and then adding on top of that additional slurring, it is a little difficult sometimes. So when I am out in public, um, I tend to not speak to people, and that makes me seem a little standoffish or not interested, perhaps. Um, there is also the mental fog side effect, and it does jumble my thoughts sometimes. It does aid to poor memory. I have noticed that I would be in the middle of a sentence and completely forget what the sentence is that I already had said. Um, and I think that these types of things, I say all of this to bundle it together and in a nice little package or ball. And um, basically, if this happens to me, then perhaps something similar happens to others that are given drugs that not only can be pronounced by their generic names, which that is all that the veteran clinic gives as generic names. But aside from the confusion of the name comes the confusion of the side effect. And there are people younger than I am, perhaps in their 20s or so, that grew up with things like attention deficit disorder or some kind of ailment that their doctor prescribed things like Ritalin or different types of pills that would slow them down, that would confuse them. And I think that this is part of the reason why the government are able to get away with a lot of what they get away with a great majority of people in a medicated fog, and with all of the electronics that they release to keep another great majority of the people distracted, then everybody would end up being less of a threat and willing to attempt to stop the government from doing what they do. Things like Facebook, Twitter, even something as simple as Instagram. You can take a picture, put it on there, and people will see that. Well, throughout your day, How many times have you seen somebody walking down the street staring at their phone or in their car at a stoplight doing something on their phone, whether it's texting or looking at whatever they might be looking at? A few days ago, I was on the bus, and one of the stops for that bus is the high school. So maybe 20 of the kids got on, and one sat across from me. Well, from the time they got on, or she got on, until maybe 5 minutes before she got off, she was doing something on her smartphone. And that's the way children, teenagers, young adults deal with things. They go on, they look around, they interact, and they are more willing to interact with a human through technology than they are walking up to a person. This, I feel, is part of the reason why there hasn't been a greater attempt to stop the government from doing what they do. And I don't mean things like protesting or the rallies of people on the side of the road with the picket signs and somebody with a bullhorn making absurd, chanting. But even those people are somewhat mentally fogged because they think that their side of the political parties are right. And I feel that whether you're on the left side or the right side, it's two sides from the same coin. It is the middle of the item, the right wing, the left wing, but it's the bird that needs to be dealt with, because both wings are part of that bird. Okay, you say all the right wing people all right, and you get rid of the left. Well, the bird can still walk. It is severely injured, but it can still walk around, eat, and get stronger. And with the government having a shutdown, I think that is similar to that wounded bird. Well, the government isn't able to do as much, but they are still walking around, eating, and getting stronger. Now, I have heard that March 1st if the government is still doing a shutdown, boxes will be provided for those on food stamps. And this was mainly what I posted in my last video. But if you cripple a group of people that rely heavily on the food stamps, then you can take out those pockets of possible resistance. I did some research yesterday. Yesterday was a interesting day. That night, I wasn't able to sleep, so I was basically up 24 plus hours because I was tired, but every time I lay down, I couldn't fall asleep, and I didn't feel like laying there thinking of what I was thinking. So, part of that may have been from being switched with the bills, being, my daily routine had gotten jumbled slightly, but other than that, I was able to sleep last night, and today, actually, shortly after I had lunch, I remembered that there was a rather large branch that had come down from all of the wind. So after I had lunch, I went out to it and handpicked some of the wood from that branch and several other branches because it was rather windy yesterday. And I heard people outside. It's Saturday, so there's going to be a lot of kids around playing and people outside talking and things like that. But I basically walked an entire length or a little bit longer than length of the apartment building, looking at the various wood that had fallen or had been pushed against the fence or were able to be collected. And I suppose in the grand scheme of things, the wood that I collected wasn't nearly as much as somebody that is having a fire pit would use or what have you, but for the can stoves that I make, that I have several of them actually, and it is somewhat interesting that I have all of these and none of them have been used. But I had the cans. I obviously have some of the food, so the only thing that I didn't have aside from the paper briquettes that I made, was actual wood. And I obviously can't pick up a branch and bring the whole thing back in with me. That isn't allowed. So I did what I could, and I have a larger bag of bigger pieces that were broken. I also have some of a cardboard box in there for kindling. But then I have this smaller bag, half filled, with smaller twigs to get it started. And obviously they're in the Ziploc bags, so anything that might have been on them wouldn't be in my home. And they would be somewhat contained. Well, having that nearly isn't enough to sustain me for a long time. But I would be able to use that if something were to happen where there wasn't power, where there wasn't the ability to use a stove, or the transportation wasn't available on the bus, and I couldn't get anywhere to like a store and get something. I would be able to use that small amount of wood to at least provide some kind of warmth, or some sort of small hot meal. And if for no other reason, at least they would provide coffee. And we all know that a day without coffee is worse than a day without your favorite comfort item. But I see this video is going especially long. Normally I do try to not ramble on as I have in this video, but I do thank you for looking at the video, watching whatever portion you may have watched, and if you're seeing this, thank you for watching the entirety. I do appreciate everyone, whether it is through the YouTube piping community or any of the other channels that you may have found me through. I do have a survival or prepping playlist, so if you are wanting to take a look through that, you would find some podcasts that I found interesting, some videos that show various skills that might be needed. It does, and I look through those, not those in the playlist, but I do look through those types of videos often. And if one strikes me that it's something that people would benefit knowing, I add it to that playlist. But as I said, thank you for hanging out, for listening to this somewhat uh, fog ridden rant or ramble, and keep your eyes on the horizon and watch your six.